Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Andrew Eborn Show. And we've been looking at roles and how to prepare those. And I'm delighted that I'm joined again by Chris Dodd. How are you, Chris?
Fabulous, thank you. Ready to roll.
Ready to roll. Rock that roll. Rock and roll is here to stay. Last time, talk us through where we are at this wonderful process of making these rolls.
So if you're following along with the series, then you'll be at the same stage as me, and this bread will be nicely proved or proven. And I don't want to touch it just yet because it's got lots of air in there. It's been about over an hour now. It depends on the type of it depends on a lot of things, how long it will take to prove up. It depends on the temperature of the room, temperature of the flour, the exact temperature of the water, all sorts. So it really is, it just needs to be doubled in size, and that's what you're looking for. But it is about an hour, and you keep it covered in that wet tea towel in a warm place. What I did was, because my stovetop is directly above my oven, what I did is I left it on there, but then I thought it wasn't proving quickly enough. So what I did was I switched on the hob quickly, just to get a little bit of heat, and I found another small oven tray, like a little cake tin, upturned it, and put the plastic bowl on top of that. So there was and then I switched the heat off. So there's a little bit extra heat, not directly on the bottom of the bowl, that will help it come up as well. Another way you could do it is leave your oven off, but just switch it with the light on. And that light often generates enough heat to prove it. And but don't forget to check it as well, because it can overprove it, or don't preheat it. Some ovens can do a little if it's really advanced, can do a preheat setting, so you don't want to come back and you think it's proving, but it's in a plastic bowl which is melting in the oven.
Oh no, it's a nightmare. And when you say you might do too much proving, how much is too much? What should you do? What's the maximum amount you should allow?
Double, sort of 2.5 times, just no more than 2.5. Otherwise, what will happen is the structure of the gluten, it's a string, an elastic band. The elastic band is coming and coming, it's stretched really far, and eventually it will break. And that's what you'll have if you let it stretch too much, and then it will have no structure. So what we're going to do now is going to do what we call knocking it back. And so it's quite satisfying as well, especially early in the morning like today. Although it's not that early after waiting for this, but look, here we go. So you've got this nice dough. Look, I can see an air bubble there. We just basically just punch it like this. And I heard a big whoosh of air as that came out, and a bit of a yeast smell too. And so that's knocked it back, and it's let it come back to just a dough again. Or that you want those air bubbles to go, and you should feel when you're squeezing it, you should feel some popping. And that's the air bubbles that have been created during the proving process. They're popping, and you want those gone. And we're going to get more of those bubbles back when we prove the rolls individually. Now, I've got my chopped olives. We spoke about those earlier. Rough chopped. You can use black olive, but it will give a sort of grey, purple colour to the bread, which is equally nice, but just not this recipe. So I'm going to flatten the bread out like this and just tip those olives onto there. And we're going to work those into the bread as well. So it's not like you're folding some pastry or something, puff pastry. This is just to incorporate them. And we're going to be don't need to be pretty with it, be brutal. It's a bread dough. I mean, that's sort of seeped out the back there. But do you remember I said that the dough was going to be quite dry? That's because look at all that juice that's come out of can you see that? Let me tip it down a little bit further. There. There's loads of juice that's come out of the olives there, which is going to make the dough a little bit wetter. So just need to squeeze this to incorporate them. You want to work those olives all the way through the bread. And this, I'm going to need to add some extra flour to this, so to balance that out. Otherwise, we'll never get this all incorporated. And it's great fun. It's messy and it's nice as long as your hands are clean. And under your fingernails are clean.
And it's great because you can get the whole family involved as well. So as you said, it's very satisfying punching That's in the morning, you let out all your frustrations, and you get the whole family involved. And that's what I love about these recipes, is that you don't have to do it alone. It's not just a laborious process. It can be a lot of fun, and that's what we want to try and do here, is put the fun into dysfunctional.
Fun into the buns. There we go. It's starting to come together now. The olives are being dispersed through that dough. So you want, if you're saying you have olive bread and you cut a loaf and half of the bread doesn't have olives in it, you're going to be quite peeved. So you want to make sure it's all well dispersed there. And so you look through, you see some bits that are not quite olivey, and you keep kneading it a little bit more. Yeah, just, you don't want to add too much flour. You just want enough to make it not so sticky. There. So that's, and you see how I'm doing that same process again, the kneading. You sort of take it, hold it at the front away from you and pull it back and push, and then turn it and repeat, and turn it and repeat, like that. And you're bringing it from the outside inwards in a sort of like a little brain, I suppose. So it looks like that. It's sort of knotted at the bottom and smoother on the top. And we're going to roll this. I'm not off camera, am I? No, good. I'm going to roll this into a sort of sausage, and that will allow us to portion the rolls properly. So although for home cooking it doesn't matter if one's 1 gram either side of what you want, but it just so it looks nice that they're all the same size. And if you're going to be baking them all at the same time, you need to make sure that they're the same size, otherwise the bigger ones won't be ready, and when the little ones will be overcooked. So I'm going to suggest 60 grams for a roll. So I have my scales here. This roll here, these are the ones I made earlier. These 60 grams, that is, and it's perfectly, what is it? It's that size, the palm of my hand. You can do a bit bigger if you want to. I think that's perfectly nice for a little dinner roll. So 60 grams, and it's good to have a set of scales there. I mean, if you haven't got a set of scales, it's probably unlikely to have got to the stage of making the bread in the first place. So you cut little slices and check. That was a bit less than 60. I'm going to be quite specific with this just because that's my habit. Yeah, 61.5, there's 60. Oh, that's gone down to 53. Yeah, so 60, you just cut all those like that, and then we're going to ball these up individually. And I'll do one example which will be a bit bigger. It'll be about 200 grams for a sort of something about that big. That's more of a hot dog style roll. So that's smaller. Rolls. Yeah, so I prefer in a restaurant to be offered rolls than slices of bread. I think because the rolls, they'll have had to, it's nice to warm up an individual roll, because if you warm up slices of bread, they start to go a bit crispy, and I've often been offered those, and it's quite disappointing to be given a crispy slice of bread in a fine dining restaurant. So I prefer dinner roll, and it's nice when the waiter comes with a basket and a set of tongs and a nice fresh warm bread covered with a napkin, and they just take them and they offer it seems to be easier to portion that way as well. So now we're going to roll these so that the bread is it's tacky but not sticky, and that's how we want it. So we're going to roll these. I'm going to do 2 at a time, but to show you the technique. Oh, and also when you end up with stick bread dough on your hands, what you want to do to clean them, if you use soap and water straight away, it'll go sort of mushy. You want to get rid of the dough, so you get some plain flour and use that, and that will dry out the extra bread and get rid of it from your hands, and you'll end up with a bit cleaner hands that are easier to wash. But in between, while you're making the bread, unless you touch your face or or go to the loo or something, you don't need to wash your hands, and it's best not to, because you want your hands kind of dry, otherwise they'll stick to the bread. So we're going to roll them like this, sort of, how do I say it? So in a similar way to doing the big one, you're going to, at the fingertips, you're going to let it, push it away and then bring it back into your hand. How do I do it? It's in a similar way to doing it in your hand like that, but you're just going to do it on the table. And it's so you're using the base of, you can do it in your hands, I suppose. I've just never really done it. Using your fingertips underneath, and you want to shape it. So you keep your hand a bit like that, like a cup, and shape it like that. And that's ready to roll. That's ready and rolled. So I'll do it again. So you can do it on the table. You keep your hands there and bring it round it, maybe about 15 to 20 turns there. And you end up with a perfectly smooth bun. And at the bottom, like we did for the big ball of it, it's all sort of knotted at the bottom. And that will give you a nice shape to the top. So 2 at a time, about 15 to 20 turns. That one's a bit wetter for some reason, more olives inside, I suppose. And there we go. We'll finish those small ones. So yeah, I'm just rolling it around and around and using the tackiness of the dough to stick to the table. And it just naturally comes into a ball. There's no real technique to it. No real difficult technique. There. And they're all the same size, give or take just 1 gram either side. I weighed them to 60. So this is the one for the sort of hot dog roll. We spoke about pitta in the other episode, and I was going to say how to make that. So what you do with a pitta is take a rolling pin and roll it into a sort of, or stretch it. You can stretch like that, but you know, rolling is a bit more controlled, and you're less likely to tear it. And then you take some water on your fingers and just press down the sides like this of the pitta bread. If you were to make pitta, this is not, I'm not making a pitta now, but you push it down like this, and then with your thumbs, just sort of crimp. It's not going to show because it's a different type of bread, a different type of dough. It's not set for the pitta. This is softer. Pitta is quite a tighter dough. And you'd see the finger marks, like a Cornish pasty is what you're going to do. And make it sort of tight around the edges there. And when you bake it on a really hot tray in a really hot oven, it'll puff up and you'll get a bubble in the middle, and that's when you get your pitta pocket or pitta rabbit, like you came up with. So this, we're going to pretend like we haven't done that with the pitta thing, and you've rolled it into a sort of rectangle, and we're going to sort of half fold, half roll it. It's not really specific, like that into a sausage. And then you choose the length and the girth that you want of the hot dog. I'm going to try this again. There. That's it. And you want to try and keep it kind of even all the way across, so it's smooth on the top, and not, because this one at the moment is, it often happens like that when you're rolling with your thumbs and you naturally push down a little bit more in the middle, so it's a bit dipped and higher at the side. So you want to try and make it as even as possible. And that's your log. That's your sort of bun, and there's your little roll. And so that recipe that I've printed has made 7 little rolls and a hot dog. But of course you can cut that into a few more pieces. That's 200 grams. So you can get almost 3. You can get 3 more of these little rolls out of that. Now we want to let these prove again, and it won't take as long as the big lump, because it's they're smaller pieces. So I'm going to take my semolina here. Now you can use baking paper if you want to, but I prefer to use semolina because you get that sort of grain on the bottom of it, and that's what that is when you see that in the supermarkets or in a bakery. You get this lovely yellow semolina. I'm going to sprinkle that over my baking tray here, And that okay, so you sprinkle it, make sure it's all covered, not too heavily, but it's sprinkled over there. And we're going to place, so I'll place the log right there, one side of it, and then position the rolls. So bear in mind, they're going to prove up and get a little bigger when they're proving and a little bigger again when they're baking. So you don't want to have them too close together, but as they are like that is perfectly fine. And so I'm going to let those prove in a warm place again. So my oven is on, and my stove from that little trick I was telling you is still quite warm. So I've had that's a little bit warm, and I'm going to leave those there and cover them again with a damp tea towel, clean tea towel. And that will keep a sort of humid atmosphere and stop the bread crisping up, because we want nice crispy bread when it's cooked, but not when it's dry. Not when it's proving. Now the oven. Let's talk about the oven. So that will be there for another, let's say, you can do it 15 minutes or something, but it'll be perfectly fine, depending on the depending on the conditions. It could be 20 minutes you can prove it for. It depends on the size, it depends on the conditions. What I've done here is just opened the oven, which I've got warming up, and I've left the door open, and that will help it prove a little bit quicker. But just for this video, normally just take your time. The slower the better. In industry, what we do is we make the dough and we put it in. We have two separate cupboards. We have a retarder, which slows the dough. It's basically a fridge that's controlled with different conditions, and then we have the prover. So when we want it to, so it's slowly activating in that retarder, and the dough will eventually die if you leave it in there for too long. But overnight it's good, and it doesn't let the rolls crisp up or anything. There's some humidity in there, and then in the morning when you want to bake it, you take it out of that special fridge and pop it into the prover where it's humid and it's set to how your recipe needs it, and let that come up for an hour or something. Slower. You don't want it. You want it humid, but you don't want to force it. Bread's a natural thing. It should be. It's nice to make. It's relaxing to massage the dough, and any stress sort of goes in your shoulders when you're doing it, because it's a bit of stretching for your shoulders too. So you want to let the bread take as slow as possible, but again, the rolls should be almost doubled in size, I'd say. Maybe not quite, maybe 1.5 times to 2 times in size. And when they're ready, they will go in the oven at 200 Celsius, which is gas mark 6, and about 400 Fahrenheit. I always think Fahrenheit just sounds really hot because it's. I grew up with Celsius, using Celsius rather than Fahrenheit. But I think Fahrenheit sounds really cool. So it's quite a hot oven. Now, one little trick that I like is that you can use steam to help the bread crisp up. So in fancy commercial ovens, you get a steam injection. It blasts a pump of water and creates this huge humid environment for 10 seconds. And at the beginning of the baking, it sends the sugars sort of rising to the top of the bread around the outside, and that's what gives you a crusty bread. If you don't want a crusty bread, then you don't put the steam in, and that's it. You can even open the oven a little bit, or some fancy ovens have a vent at the back that doesn't drop the temperature, but it lets some of the humidity out. And so for something like hot dog buns, you wouldn't use steam so much or at all. What else was it? Yeah, so that's it. So to create the steam in a home oven, what you do is I take a tray of water. So I've just cooked some creme brulee in a tray of water. So I've got that tray of water still in there. Now I put that on the floor of the oven, but not so much water, maybe 200 mils, and that will go in there. And when you shut the oven, there'll be a wonderful humid atmosphere in there, and it will help the bread to rise. It will help the bread to crisp up, and so then you end up with this nice crusty bread. Now, I made this a few hours ago, so it's softened a little bit, but It's nice and crusty. And so what you want when you break open the bread is that's what it will look like. You see the olives aren't, in this one, there's not many olives in the middle there, but there's some nearer the edge, which looks cool because you can see on the outside for the little flecks of olive to show what it is. And in here, it's really nice to put some cheese inside as well in this. So maybe instead of the fat of the olive oil, or instead of half of it, you could put some grated cheese inside. You can put some chili powder inside if you want a bit of a punch to it. You can put cheese on top of the bread. So just before you put it in the oven, just sprinkle the grated cheese on top. Grate it yourself. Don't buy the grated cheese from the shop because that's just cheating. And that's pretty much the end of it. So we just bake that. Where are the breads here? Here we are.
And so the tray of water, if you want, that stays in there all the time to give it that sort of stuff. And that,
yes, yeah. I mean, if you want, you don't want too much. You don't want too much water in there because it will be really steamy. You'll almost poach them, which is not really what you want. So about 200 mils in a tray, and that will evaporate eventually, and then you'll end up with a dry tray by the time the rolls are finished cooking. And that's something you can play with. You can add more water if you want a really crispy roll. You can add double that, and then it's steamy for longer, or just don't put it in at all. This recipe will work with no steam. Just one note on that: boil the kettle first, have the tray in the oven, and add the water there. Don't carry a tray of hot water. That just makes sense. But just wanted to clarify. So these rolls have sort of proved up a little bit because I had them in that warm oven. I left them covered with a tea towel. Are we on screen there? Yep. I left them covered with a tea towel. And it stuck to them a little bit. I just wanted this video not to go on for so long while you wait for the rolls to prove. Now, what you can do is take a knife. Now, I've got a serrated knife here, but you can use a sharp chef's knife if you want to, or razor blades. Razor blades give a really fine, deep cut without disturbing the dough too much, and it's a thin blade too. So you don't have to do this; they'll bake perfectly fine. But if you cut them, what you'll find is the heat gets to the middle better, and you also get a wonderful cross shape or a few lines on the top. It just adds to the aesthetics of it. But I'm not going to touch it very much. Just hold it in place gently, and just cut through the rolls there. You see on there, because it's a knife and it's not a razor blade, it sort of tore the dough rather than just cut it. So I ideally use a razor blade, one of the old-fashioned ones, not the Gillette safety blades, but just cut in there across. I mean, you could do just a couple of lines like that. You could try even 2 lines one way, 1 line another. That's up to you to play with what you make it look like. On the log, I would just do sort of baguette style and cut through there crossways, or you could just do 1 or 2 lines across the lengthways of it instead. I find the cross looks quite nice and it gets the heat right to the middle. So I'll continue with those. And you let that work after it's proved. And those are proved quite nicely indeed. So I'm going to just, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to bake those. So I'll shut the oven again, get it back up to temperature, and that will go in and we'll bake for 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. This one will take a little longer because it's bigger. But you want to see, this is baked. This was baked about 3 hours ago, so that sort of texture's tightened a bit. 3 hours isn't old, and the thing is, this has no stabilizers in it, which is wonderful. That's what you want. You don't want tons of stabilizers in your bread, because why would you? You're making this for yourself. You're not trying to make it last as long as possible so you can sell as many of those loaves over a week. I mean, companies like Hovis and Warburtons and that, God, I just don't know what's in their bread. It's stabilizers. Milk powder is often in bread. That's not bad because it's not chemical. It's just dehydrated milk. But that's what they use in milk buns, in the burger buns and things, if it's not a brioche. So that can enhance it. Milk powder, it makes it sort of sweeter, whiter, and softer too. If you get the fluffy white sliced loaves for sandwiches, they will have milk powder in them. What else can you put in it? Yes, you can get powders that are called improvers. You get a range of different ones of those. You can put pinches of that in if you need it, but they've been baking it for thousands of years without any of that. So it's not really necessary. It's just on a bigger scale because you don't want to make a big batch and then you lose half of it because of the timing. If you only have one oven and you've got loads of rolls, if one's ready, they'll all be ready. So it will be overproofed and you'll lose it. So those things, I understand why they use them, but if you're making it at home, just follow this recipe or get another equally good recipe from a book, or there's loads of bread books out there, and there's so much science to bread that you can make it simply. This is quite a simple recipe, or you can go really scientific and advanced with it and let it play around, add all sorts of stuff to it. Instead of olives, you can put seeds in there, caraway seeds or fennel or pumpkin seeds are great. You can mix with the white flour. You can use wholemeal flour, some rye flour. It's really just this is a basic recipe, a flavored, but a basic bread recipe that you can take out the olives. If you take out the olives and put something dry in, you won't need to add any extra flour. And you could even add a little bit extra water at the beginning because it would be a drier mix in the first place. All right, my oven is ready, so I'll take you down to the oven. There we go. So there you go. I've got that tray of water at the bottom there. You can see the steam coming off it, and that will be lovely. So there's the bread going into the oven. There you go. Say good night, and that will be. We'll give it 15 minutes on the oven timer, and hopefully it won't take much longer than that. Maybe 1, maybe 2 minutes longer than that. But that would be a lovely, nice, crispy color. With a cake, you can open the oven towards the end and turn it around so it's a bit more even cooking. A bread, I don't find you need that so much. Maybe more if it's a big loaf, you might need to turn it. But for this, it's not worth it. The little rolls are just 15 minutes in the oven. That's more than enough, and it's absolutely delicious. And the smell, I can't smell it yet, but in about 3-4 minutes, I'll start to smell the fresh bread, maybe a bit of olive smell coming through as well. But it's just one of my favorite memories from culinary school was the entrance to the school was through the bakery often. Right. And they changed it afterwards, which is quite sad because I used to enjoy going through the bakery entrance and smell because the bakery class would already be going at that time in the morning, 7 o'clock or something. So they'd already be baking that bread. What a welcome smell to work or to college was that. It's just incredible.
Absolutely stunning, as you say, the smell. And if you want to sell a house, if you're trying to sell a house, bake some bread, put some wonderful flowers out there.
Brew a cup of coffee.
Put some coffee as well. And the house will just fly off the shelves, like houses do. They always sit on shelves. So.
Yeah. I remember walking when I was a child. I remember walking past an estate agent with my father, and it was I saw all these pictures in a window, and I thought it was an art gallery. I thought that's an expensive picture. It was brilliant. I remember that.
There you are, £250,000 for that photo. It's got to be good. No, we
for
love
a photo of a house, for a photo of a semi-detached house.
Always a thrill. So wonderful stuff. So that was very easy. The recipe is on the site as well. Have a look. Do have a go. Put your comments in the comments below. And if you want to share your own recipes for any of that, do write to us at lol@octopustv.com. We have lots more coming up with Chris. Give us a little taste of what we're going to see in the future, Chris.
In the future, we'll be coming back. We'll be lining a pastry tart. We'll be making creme brulee. We will be. What else will we be doing? I'll give some top tips. I'd like to show you how to sharpen a knife.
We want to do that. We want top tart tips as well. We're going to do all of that and a lot more right here on Octopus TV. In the meantime, Chris, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you in a bit to take these out of the oven, shall we?
Okay, good idea. See you in a bit. Bye-bye. Well, a very warm welcome back. It's Andrew Eborn here again. If you just joined us, you have missed the first half. Rewind this video right back to the very, very beginning, and you will see that we've been rock and rolling, learning how to make bread and some fantastic olive rolls. I'm here with the wonderful Chris Dodd. How's it going, Chris?
Going great guns. I'll show you a little sneak peek into the oven without opening it, just through the oven door. Take this camera down. Now, can you see that? Is that coming across? Look at those.
Oh, that looks sensational.
They're starting to get a little bit of color. They've risen up. They've not doubled because they prove to double. So in the oven, they rise a little bit more. They're just sort of baking it, crisping it up in the oven. But I'll just sort of peek inside. Look, there we go. So that's so those will be about another 2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes, so no time at all. And how can you tell? I mean, we've done all sorts of tests in the past about checking when things like lemon drizzle cakes are ready. How can you tell when bread's ready?
You take one of the loaves or rolls and you just tap the bottom, and it will sound hollow. And that's it. You can hear. This is the one I baked before, so it still sounds quite hollow. And that's ready.
And that's very hot when you take it out of the oven and tap it on its bottom.
Yeah, warm. Yeah, but I mean, don't hold it in there, and I wouldn't recommend eating it. But just pick it up by your fingertips, because they're usually a little bit more less tender. If you play the guitar, the calluses on your fingers should be able to take some heat, and mine certainly do. I've been playing the guitar a lot of it in the lockdown. There's the oven. Let's check the rolls.
Time. Look at us with the timing of normal television. It's always a thrill. So the rolls are just about ready. If you just joined us, we are making some special olive rolls today. It shows you how easy it is to do at home. Let's have a look. Are these ready? It shows the tapping of the bottom.
These are not quite ready. If you listen to this, it's got a hollow sound, but it sounds slightly, well, live here anyway, it sounds slightly dense. That's more from experience. It really, you should know what you know what I mean by hollow. Everyone knows what hollow means, but it's more like it will sound completely empty, really, like a dull, empty sound.
I know lots of people who are dull and empty, but not many. Not many. It's always a joy. We're filling them full of knowledge, which is always a joy. Everybody who watches this program is already full, brimming with knowledge, which is a joy. So back in the oven they go. How much longer do you reckon?
I'd say 2 minutes. No more, Andrew.
That will be good. So whilst we're doing that, we can talk us through, just remind us of the different breads, and we do variations on it, because what we said beforehand is that the olive bread, are they back in the oven? They're already back in the oven.
Yeah, I only took that one out, so there's one.
Yeah. So what I love, apart from the so when you go to these fine restaurants, we've encouraged people to try lots of different things. They will come with all sorts of bread, and you can put bits of bacon in there. You can do an onion bread, as you said. You can put some fennel in there, and they're glorious combination. And you can just experiment, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of cheese in breads. I think it's great. It's really cool. Blue cheese bread, blue cheese and olive bread would go quite nicely. Blue cheese and red pepper.
Tomato, I love a tomato in bread, so you can do that. Glorious.
Sun-dried tomato. You can use tomato puree from the tube. You can mix that in. That's quite oily, so you could use that instead of the olive oil in this recipe, and it will give a richness and a tomato flavour. And then buy those sun-dried or sun-blushed tomatoes and chop those through, and that's a great flavour. I found some truffle oil in my cupboard just here.
Now you're talking. I love truffle oil. I love truffle oil with eggs, and I love that sort of stuff. Come on, I can smell it from here.
It's great. And I've got some wonderful balsamic oil as well. Balsamic vinegar. I wouldn't put that in bread.
I have on my tomato mozzarella, and balsamic vinegar is awesome. Absolutely superb, isn't it?
It's one of the best salads. You slice some tomatoes and pour the olive oil on and salt, and let it sit for, I think the peak time is 7 minutes, and all the juice will come out, and it will sauce itself. And tear some basil on there. I think it's just tear. If you chop basil, it looks bruised, so you sort of tear it and put the basil on the top of the salad, and It's just perfect salad. I don't think it needs any more dressing than that.
No, it's absolutely superb. And a tomato mozzarella, I have a few of my favourite dishes which we've touched on, but a tomato mozzarella, it is so simple. As you say, you get the combination with the tomato, the mozzarella, and that glorious bit of basil on top, and then you rip it, but also then you sprinkle it with the balsamic vinegar, you put the olive oil, you put some one of their freshly baked bread, which you can put underneath it. It is divine and so good for you, isn't it?
So good, yeah. I mean, olive oil's great. I saw it. Was it? I think it was a TV drama. I think it was or a film.
I think
the
it's
name
the
Robert
Popeye episode you're thinking of. The Popeye episode with olive oil. That's a different one altogether.
No, Robert De Niro plays he's a guy who's given up some of the big mob bosses, and he's had to move to France. I think it was with Michelle Pfeiffer. So if ever you want to move to France with somebody, I mean, why not Michelle Pfeiffer? But so he picked Michelle Pfeiffer he probably wrote the film, really. I mean, I'm just going to check these rolls. They're looking lovely, and they are crispy. And there we go. It's hot. Hang on. They're very hot, and they've got that lovely hollow sound. Is that coming up through the camera?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. I can hear the hollow sound. So it only took an extra couple of minutes. So don't burn them. You can check them every so often. They do get cooked fairly quickly. But that's the sound that you want.
So that was only 20. That was 20 minutes at 200 Celsius. It's gas mark 6, and whatever Fahrenheit is. But yeah, they've got this lovely, and you've got those. So I did most of them with a cross on them. I'm holding them in my hand because they're in the cloth because it's very hot. But look, we've got the cross here, and then this one I did the couple of lines. But yeah, it's a shape. I mean, you don't need to make them round. You could make mini versions of that hot dog roll. So, you know, in different shapes. So you could have one. The olive bread will be round, and the onion bread will be a log. Cheese bread will be a square shape. Because what you can do, you can take that finished dough and roll it, not too thin, but roll it out so it's flat on top, and cut it into squares or triangles, and then you've got another shape. You can do all sorts of shapes. It's a base recipe.
You can plats the bread. You can do all sorts of bits and pieces like that, which is fantastic. The movie you were thinking of, by the way, was with Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer, was the 2013 movie called The Family, and they moved down to Normandy as part of the witness protection scheme. We love it. This is like a multiple challenging quiz. We throw these little snippets in as you talk through our culinary journey around the world, but it is glorious. And do experiment. What's the most unusual thing you put in bread?
Unusual. I put a herb. In Vietnam, I put a herb in there, morning glory, and which is a really bitter herb. And
it's a green one, which looks a bit like broccoli. It looks very good.
Yeah, it's really nice, and it's quite bitter. And I chopped it up, and I blanched it first, so it wasn't dry, because otherwise you end up with sort of burnt leaves and things through the bread. It's like I mentioned, sun-dried tomatoes. So soak those in some sort of warm water and let them rehydrate a bit, and then chop them up. Otherwise, you'll end up with burnt tomato through the bread. It's not a good look. So, and the same, like when we made scones, Andrew, we soaked the raisins in some water, or apple juice, and then that rehydrates them, so you don't get the burnt raisin through the scones. It's the same with this. Olives are already pre-soaked, aren't they? They're marinated. They don't come out.
It'd be terrible if you pre-burnt them, but yes, they are pre-soaked. You're right. And glorious. And the other thing you can also do the sweet versions of bread. We have a date and walnut bread. I love banana. I mean, all sorts of glorious things you can put in there.
Yeah, I'd say more banana cake. Banana bread is more of a cake. It's butter and sugar and banana, really, baking powder and flour. I'd say I hesitate to call anything without yeast a bread. I mean, there's some exceptions as well, but I'd say most things.
Walnut bread, that would probably be. I mean, it's a label, but date and walnut bread is bread, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, something you'd serve with a cheese. That's dates and walnuts chucked through a sort of a brown bread dough. I had a thought of something. Potato and rosemary bread and olive oil and things. That's delicious, and you can put that in focaccia. Now, focaccia is a different thing. So that's you'd use water, but a lot of olive oil in that bread as well, in the dough. And then you sort of roll it out and put it in a tray and use your fingers to make loads of holes in it, and then douse it with more olive oil and chopped rosemary, and then, you know, whatever else you want to put on top, potatoes, cooked potatoes, thin slices, and then bake that. And that's just wonderful. I love focaccia.
Yeah, I was talking to you earlier about the tomato mozzarella being one of my favorite dishes with the balsamic vinegar. Having some focaccia to mop up all of those glorious juices are absolute sensation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we should do, even though you can just say this is how you do focaccia, let's prepare a special focaccia for everybody and do that with a tomato mozzarella on the side. We'll do that next time, yeah?
Okay, that's a good call. I like it. Nice focaccia with tomato mozzarella. We can, and with a good thing about that, you can then, if it manages to get old, if you don't manage to eat it all, you can slice it up and toast it, and then you brush it with garlic and garlic oil and make your crostinis. What do you call them? Bruschetta.
Absolutely. That's why I suggested it. There's a whole diversity thing going on here, and we love diversity. So we'll do one of those next time, which will be fantastic. So the rolls are all ready. I'll be crack one open, have a look, and you can tell us how to serve it, how to prepare it.
Yeah. So with when they're fresh from the oven, I've just cut this one in half with a knife. Now you see, because I've cut it, it's squished down the roll a little bit, and it's got it looks condensed and it looks uncooked, but it's not uncooked, because if you then take one and break it in half, it's not uncooked there. It looks really light and fluffy, and it's gorgeous. And you can smell the olives, you can smell the paprika a little bit. I think actually I could get away with a lot more paprika in here. Yeah, you could put a bit more paprika if you want a smokier flavor, but it's more just a background flavor, so a warming flavor there. But I said about the chili powder, you could definitely use some chili powder or cheese inside. It's great, really. I mean, that's a wonderful addition. Anything, it really is a base dough, and you can throw anything you want in there and just give it a go. If you're not sure, try it. Yeah. Don't make a big quantity. Absolutely. Don't make too much. But,
sort of stuff. So do try that at home. Let us know what extra bits and pieces you put in for that sort of side as well. And you'd accompany that with a bit of butter, particular butter you would pick?
This is a salted butter. Not particularly. This is Irish butter, salted Irish butter. Let me get my butter knife.
And you can try different types of butter, which is fantastic. And you can add things to the butter. That's the great thing about it. So depending on what you want to try and do, you can add your own herbs, you can add your own truffle oil, all those sort of glorious things. A bit of garlic, all of those work well.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, but you want to soften the butter, but not melt it. If you melt it, and it will set back in a different way. So you just soften it to a sort of a thick mayonnaise quantity. Stir in what you want to add, and then roll it. So you let it, and then put it back in the fridge so it gets a bit firmer. But what you want to do is you can make it. It's called a ballantine. When you get it, it's a style of making a sausage, I suppose. And you make a few layers of cling film on the table, and use a tea towel to push out any air bubbles between those 2 layers or 3 layers. And you sort of put a splodge of the butter on there, and then roll it. Roll the cling film over the top of the splodge. Splodge is the word I'm going with. And you sort of shape it and then roll it around. And then you tie it one end, and then sort of squeeze the other end and slide it all down, and you get this tube, and then tie that knot, and then leave it in the fridge, and it's ready. And you can even freeze that, and it freezes quite nicely indeed. You can put all sorts in there. And in that way, your butter's already ready. You don't need to, if you want sun-dried tomato on your bread or garlic or something, you don't need to mix the 2 together. It's already there. It's great.
One thing which I love with bread as well is olive oil and balsamic vinegar. We talked about this. You put the olive oil down, in fact, the best olive oil you can find, and put a few drips of balsamic in the middle, and it's a wonderful thing to dip your bread into. Absolutely sensational.
So I've got my olive oil here. You're resting on my sort of, I don't know, condiment cupboard.
I've rested on a few condiments in my time. It's always a thrill.
So I'm just going to drizzle a bit of olive oil And where are we? Olive oil and this wonderful balsamic vinegar, really thick and syrupy this one is. Look at that. Nice dob of that in there. I've got the fresh bread roll, olive bread. Just dip in. And for the money shot, buon appetito. Oh, fantastic. And it's great with butter, so I'm going to have a bit with butter as well. Mm.
Absolutely glorious. And that's exactly how we like it. Isn't that sensational?
Oh,
Sensational and so easy to prepare. So if you do want to give it a go, give it a go. The recipe is right underneath the comments here, right under the descriptions. Do send in your own pictures of the bread that you try. And if you're adding bits to it and want to experiment a little bit, you've got the basic recipe and try a number of the suggestions we've gone through. We will do a special episode on focaccia because I love focaccia and it's so good to prepare. And we'll do a tomato mozzarella as well. But for now, Chris, any other final words on rolls?
Choose the best butter to go on it. Your favorite butter. Really, don't be shy. Smash out on a good butter to keep in your fridge. It lasts a long time. Butter, longer than milk and things. The way it's prepared. So keep a good one. It's not going to break the bank. Instead of paying £1.50, you'll pay maybe £3 or something. So yes, it's double. But how often do you put a little knob of butter on some bread roll? If you've gone to all that effort. I mean, not much effort, but if you've gone to the effort of making your own bread, why go with a cheap and nasty butter from whichever supermarket? No, get a real nice salted one. Go with salted as well, and it would be a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm going to leave you now and enjoy the rest of my olive roll. I'm a bit peppered.
Thank you very much indeed. Always better is indeed better for you. It's better for us. It's better for your wallet, and it's better for your health as well. Chris, for now, thank you very much for joining us.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So absolutely sensational and so easy. So do give it a go yourself. All of the recipes here on Octopus TV are easy to do. They're fantastic stuff prepared by 5-star chefs. I bring you the best of the best from around the world. And what I really want to encourage is people to try it themselves. Give it a go and write to me at Andrew Eborn at octopustv.co.uk. All the details, all the addresses are in the description. And in any event, if you've got suggestions or you want to come on the show yourself or people you'd like to hear from, do write to me and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to Octopus TV on all the normal platforms. Go to YouTube and Dailymotion. You can follow us on Twitter, Twitface, all of those and many, many more. But in the meantime, I've been Andrew Eborn. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.